What's going on, everybody? RJ Ochoa here from SB Nation's bloggingtheboys.com. Hope all is well wherever you are. We hope you're happy, safe, healthy, and that you're excited to maybe grab a cup of coffee and talk about the Dallas Cowboys 53-man roster. That's right. It is just before 5 p.m. Central Standard Time on Tuesday, August the 29th, 2023. We have all of our articles written at bloggingtheboys.com discussing, assessing, and analyzing the initial Dallas Cowboys 53-man roster. If you are watching this video before 8 p.m. Central Time, we will be live tonight, Tuesday night, as we always are, on the Blog of the Boys YouTube channel, Twitch channel, etc., for the latest Blog on the Boys roundtable. We'll, of course, be discussing this roster in great length. Myself, Danny Phantom, Tony Catalina, Brandon Clements. But today, right here, right now, whether you're watching this before or after 8 p.m., maybe even on Wednesday, we're going to break down the initial 53 players to be on the Dallas Cowboys roster. And we talked about that word a lot in our prediction video because there are some roster gymnastics at play for the Dallas Cowboys. We'll, of course, see these as we take a look at the groups. Let's go ahead and do it. Offensively, for the Dallas Cowboys at quarterback, not a surprise. You've got Dak Prescott, Cooper Rush, Trey Lance, Will Grier, obviously. A hard goodbye for the Cowboys to say. If he does make it through waivers, hopefully the Cowboys, are able to bring him back to be on their practice squad. I think we would all be very happy about that. At running back, you can see Tony Pollard, Rico Dowdle, Deuce Vaughn, Hunter Lipke. There is no Malik Davis, and I know that is upsetting to a lot of people because Malik was a fan favorite. A lot of people really excited about what he offered, but Rico Dowdle earned that RB2 job, and Deuce is his own thing. Hunter Lipke, the Cowboys keeping a tried and true fullback on their roster. That is super exciting. It certainly harkens back to Mike McCarthy's days with the Green Bay Packers, John Kuhn. But I think, I did right after this roster came out, I did a live stream on the Bleacher Report app. You can follow me on Bleacher Report as well. I'm going to be doing some things with them this coming season as well. Lots of fun to kind of spread my wings and fly throughout more and more spaces here on the internet. But one thing that we talked about in that stream, and that we're going to talk about right now, is Kyle Juszczyk. I think people forget that if you go back and you watch Mike McCarthy's introductory press conference with the Dallas Cowboys when he was announced to be the team's head coach in the early days of 2020, shortly before the world changed, all right? At the time, the Kansas City Chiefs had just won the Super Bowl, their first one, and they had defeated the San Francisco 49ers. And the only thing that people ever remember about that press conference is that Mike McCarthy joked about how he lied about watching every snap from the season before, and everybody has held that against him ever since. But if you go back and watch that press conference and Mike McCarthy's touting himself or going to the PFF offices and all that stuff, he talks about the team that he really enjoyed watching in 2019 was the San Francisco 49ers. And what a surprise. You enjoyed watching one of the best teams in the NFL. Like that, man. Like I'm not offering this as some unique thing. But we know that Kyle Shanahan is the best play caller in the NFL. And I don't think that it's a coincidence that that's the team who Mike McCarthy, even though Jerry Jones noted McCarthy wasn't a part of it, who Mike McCarthy was down to take Trey Lance from, and who Mike McCarthy has seen utilize a fullback in a new and innovative way. I'm not saying this is the old school fullback. I think this is a new modernized fullback. That's what Hunter Lipke offers the Dallas Cowboys, which is why so many of us wanted to see him be on the roster when it was all said and done. At wide receiver, the Cowboys have CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks, Michael Gallup, Jalen Tolbert, Kevontae Turpin, and Jalen Brooks. This was really, really, really obvious. I don't think that anybody saw any other way that this was going to break out. It's unfortunate for Simi Fehoko. It's unfortunate for Jalen Moreno-Cropper. Maybe, again, all these players we're going to talk about, hopefully a lot of them, if not all of them, I know that's not possible, make it back to the Cowboys practice squad, but this is the group that makes sense. The top four are the top four. Kevontae has the return aspect to his game, and Jalen Brooks is the 7th-round draft pick. In fact, every year that Mike McCarthy has been the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, 2020, 1, 2, and now 3, that year, the rookie year of the respective draft classes, every player that was drafted by the team made the 53-man roster. So Jalen Brooks, it was kind of fair to pencil and maybe even, get a little bit crazy with some pen ink and put him in on the group. At tight end, there's no Sean McEwen. I know that's a bummer. A lot of us are big fans of Sean, but the Cowboys going with Jake Ferguson, Peyton Hendershot, frickin' frack, Fergushot, whatever you want to call them, and the rookie 2nd-round draft pick, Luke Schoonmaker. Again, I think that made a lot of sense. Over there on the right, I guess it's to my left, the way that this camera is oriented, the Cowboys right now have a little bit of construction happening at offensive line. The starters are there. They make sense. Zach Martin's back. All that's over. Tyron Smith, Tyler Biadasz, so difficult to say them back to back to back. Zach Martin and Terrence Steele. Then your reserves, you've got Matt Waletzko, who is a candidate to go on injured reserve, Austin Richards, and TJ Bass. There's nobody who can play center for the Cowboys outside of Tyler Biadasz, at least no obvious answer. You are not seeing Chuma Edoga, who is, a candidate, I suppose, to theoretically do that. He was part of the initial roster cuts, but like a few other players we're going to talk about when we get to the other slide, he is expected to return to the team. This happens every year, oftentimes with your specialists. Spoiler alert, again, for what we're going to talk about in a moment. This happens every year with the Cowboys and other NFL teams. They cut players who they know they can get back 24 hours later so they can stash players on injured reserve, players like Matt Waletzko. Because if you don't know the rules about this, and we talked about this in our video previewing or predicting rather the 53-man roster, you have to be on the roster initially to be eligible to come back from injured reserve. If the team places you on injured reserve, like they did with Josh Ball, you cannot return from injured reserve in the middle of the season. All right, those are just the rules and the way this thing goes. So the Cowboys have to carry Matt Waletzko if they want to be able to use him at any point later on down the road this season. That's the reason some of these roster gymnastics are what they are. Again, Chuma Edoga is a player who will be back with the Cowboys in all likelihood, probably before you even see this video. Although I hope that's not true, because I hope you watch the video as soon as possible. So that is the state of the offense for the Dallas Cowboys. And again, really kind of chalk, really standard, a lot of things we expected. And man, that's good. I've done a lot of talking today. I can't wait to have a cup of hot tea. So let's move on to the defensive side of things. Cowboys right now have a lot of defensive linemen, and they said goodbye to a pass rusher who everybody's really upset by. We have put Micah Parsons at defensive end. He put him at linebacker if you want. I really don't care. He's on the team. He's the best player on the team, whatever. Defensive ends, you got Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, Dorrance Armstrong, Sam Williams, and Dante Fowler. There is no Isaiah Land on this team as far as pass rushers are concerned. I mentioned the BR stream that I did with Bleacher Report. We had a poll question, kind of like we do our MVP or our star of the game after games here on the Blog of the Boys YouTube channel, where we asked which player were you most upset about the Cowboys moving on from. Isaiah Land won that, and I don't think that that's a surprise. Hopefully he does make it back to the practice squad as well. Cowboys have a bevy of pass rushers. I think we're super excited to see what this group can do in 2023. If you go along the interior, you move along to, I guess it's your right, my left over there, that way, that to my left, your right. Defensive tackle, Mozzie Smith, Jonathan Hankins, Osa Odigizua, Junior Fehoko, the rookie, Chauncey Golston. And apologies if you saw the article that we had at our site right away. It was an accident, left Neville Gallimore off. We fixed it. Don't worry. He's on the graphic here. Neville Gallimore, a part of the Cowboys 53-man roster. We don't know how well he made it if he was the 53rd player in, but obviously in a lot of predictions that myself and other people did, he was a candidate to be left off, but he is a part of things nonetheless. So that's a lot of beef up front for the Cowboys, a lot of defensive linemen. And if we go further back in the defense, go to that linebacker spot, only 4. And one of them is kind of new, as you can see. Leighton Vander Esch, your tried true classic off-ball linebacker. Damone Clark, who's really come along strong here in his second season. Devin Harper, who's really impressed. And Marquise Bell. So first of all, you'll note the absence of Jabril Cox. Now, Michael Gelkin of the Dallas Morning News wrote an article. We talked about that here. I wrote about it at our site. He wrote it on Saturday night after the preseason finale about how Jabril Cox and Kelvin Joseph and really lots of other people that were a part of that 2021 draft class for the Cowboys, Quentin Bohanna, you didn't see in the defensive tackle group, how they likely were not going to make this team. And Jabril Cox did not. Now, he could wind back up with the practice squad, but it just didn't happen. And I hope I hope that's possible. Like I said, I hope every player winds up back on the practice squad, but it just never clicked for Jabril Cox with the Cowboys, and that's unfortunate. But as you can see, we have lumped Marquise Bell in with the linebackers. He had a quote, I'm paraphrasing, about a week ago that the Cowboys told him that's where he was going to play. So Marquise Bell is now one of the linebacker options for the Cowboys. But this is kind of a gray area because we know that Dan Quinn utilizes players in a number of different ways. As we go back to the corners, let's talk about the secondary. There are 7 names right now in the cornerback room for the Cowboys, but Nashawn Wright, a candidate to go on injured reserve as well, again, with the ability now to bring him back later on this season. He's the last name on that list, but you can see Trayvon Diggs, Stephon Gilmore, Deron Bland, no surprises there. Jordan Lewis was activated off of the physically unable to perform list on Tuesday. And the reason that is significant, again, if you don't know the details of these distinctions when it comes to NFL rosters, had Jordan Lewis remained on that PUP list, he would not have counted against the 53-man roster, but he would have had to have missed at least 4 games to begin this season in the NFL. We've seen that so far across the league as a whole with Kyler Murray, the Arizona Cardinals quarterback. He's on the PUP list to start the season. Von Miller, the star Buffalo Bills pass rusher, he's on the PUP list. So those players cannot play in the first 4 games of the season for their respective teams. Keep in mind the Cowboys visit the Cardinals in week 3, and no matter what, Kyler Murray cannot play. I think we knew that he wouldn't, but still, it is now a matter of fact, not a matter of assumption. But so Jordan Lewis back, he's eligible to play next Sunday night against the New York Football Giants. And then Noah Igbenogany. That was kind of the real curveball that came out of nowhere. We talked about a little while ago how it was anticipated that Kelvin Joseph would not make the 53-man roster. He did not, but he was not cut. He was not released. He was not waived. He was traded. And it was the rare player-for-player swap. In fact, the even more rare player and player who play the same position swap. Kelvin Joseph sent to the Miami Dolphins. Kelvin, of course, a second-round draft pick in 2021 for Noah Igbenogany, who was a first-round draft pick of the Miami Dolphins in 2020. So kind of a free look at a player based on somebody you were going to move on from both the Dallas and Miami perspectives here. I think the hope involved for everyone involved is that a fresh, scene, a new, environment helps those players realize the potential that saw them get drafted where they did. But Noah Igbenogany, now a member of the Dallas Cowboys. Eric Scott Jr., of course, the rookie, we knew he was going to make it. So there are 7 corners, again, with Nashawn Wright, and we talked about Matt Waletzko on the offensive side of things. They are 2 names who are expected to go on injured reserve sooner rather than later. So that list will get whittled down to 6. And again, I think it would, be rather encouraging. I saw this note from friend of the show, John Owning of PFF. The fact that Dallas traded away Kelvin Joseph suggests that they have a high level of belief in where Jordan Lewis is at in his road back to playing. So that is a confident sort of sign. But at safety, no real shocks. Donovan Wilson, who we haven't really talked about given the injury at the beginning of training camp. Jaron Kearse, Malik Hooker, Izzy Mukwamu, who has some corner flexibility himself, and Wanye Thomas, one of the better stories going on with the Cowboys right now. And on the specialist category, we only have 2 when there really are 4. Brandon Aubrey, the team's place kicker. Congratulations to him. It's been a weird kind of time. Lots of kicker trades in the NFL. Brian Anger, the team's punter. You do not see Trent Sieg or CJ Goodwin, who are both specialists. Obviously, Trent is the long snapper and CJ Goodwin the gunner. They are expected to return to the Cowboys as well after these roster gymnastics that we talked about. So those are things that still have to happen. And that's why if you stumble upon this video, whether you had it suggested to you in your YouTube algorithm, if that is the case, you should hit subscribe so that you don't have to have it suggested. You can just see it in your subscription feed. But if you stumble across this video at some point later on in the week, it's possible that these transactions have become official, that Nashawn Wright or Matt Waletzko are officially on injured reserve, that whether it's Trent Sieg or CJ Goodwin or Chuma Doga are back again. There's just a little bit of kind of settling in that this all has to take before the Cowboys officially march forward into the week 1 game on Sunday Night Football against the New York Giants. But we're just about there. The kind of big fanfare circus part of this is now in the rearview mirror. The Cowboys effectively have their 53-man roster. They have 2 players who weren't even on the team this time a week ago in Trey Lance and Noah Igbenogany. And so they seem ready. I know that we're all ready. And so, like I said, if you are catching this before 8 p.m. Central Time on Tuesday, heck, even if you're catching this after, you can go rewatch it. I don't know why I said it that way, but there will be a roundtable here on our feed later on. So make sure you subscribe here to the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel. Subscribe on Twitch if that's your preferred method. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram. And my name is RJ Ochoa. You can follow me on Twitter, on Instagram, or on Threads. Shout out to Threads for getting a desktop, accessibility point now. But Twitter, Instagram, or Threads at RJ Ochoa. On TikTok, RJ.Ochoa. Or if you'd like to send me an email, you can, rj.ochoa@sbnation.com. Of course, we'll do our very best to answer all comments that come along here on the video as well. But yeah, I know that Jabril Cox didn't make it. I know that Isaiah Land didn't make it. Malik Davis didn't make it. Simi Fehoko. There's some names that I know that were really bummed. Will Greer, just based on the story that was last week. But this is a really talented team. And I don't mean to do the the Cowboys win the Super Bowl thing, but this is a really talented team that has a lot of potential. And I think we're all really, really, really excited to see whether or not they're going to live up to it or not. And we're finally as close as we've ever been to seeing that challenge completely and totally unfold. So, yeah. So thanks so much for hanging out, everybody. We'll see you next time. We love you all, and go Cowboys.